Josh, the curious case of the GME collateral question. Specifically, what I'm talking about is what would allow the players of this game to continue to expand their balance sheet. Said in English, fancy way of saying, this is the question, or the question I'm trying to answer is what constrains, let's say, a market maker who's short from continue to go short and short and short? Well, what's the actual, who will actually blow the whistle on them? And when I was thinking about that, the conclusion I came to was the people who are allowing a market maker to go short in anything, it's going to depend probably upon the collateral that the person who's going shorts post. So before I knew about GME, I was pretty, and still am, pretty plugged into the silver, to the physical silver market. Lots of similarities here. And without getting too deep into the weeds in silver, the big villain in the silver story is something called COMEX. So it's a stretch, but not too much of a stretch to say what Citadel is to the GME story, COMEX is to the silver story. Reason I mention all of this is COMEX essentially guarantees delivery of silver if somebody wants delivery. But of course, you don't have to take delivery of silver. You can cash settle. And at the end of the day, COMEX itself isn't necessarily trying to be a silver supplier. They're just a marketplace. They make the market. But COMEX will guarantee delivery of the final product, saying, listen, if one of the counterparties we engage with doesn't provide the silver, we COMEX have our own silver or gold or whatever, wheat, coffee beans, etc., depending whatever the contract is, that we will remit over to you. And what allows this to work is that COMEX has a base supply of silver that is then in turn leveraged on up. In other words, COMEX has been supplied collateral that they use to back the reputation. And at the same time, those who trade with COMEX also have to pony up collateral. And presumably, the more collateral that one posts, the more on margin one can go. This is where we come back to the GME side of the story, where if you need margin to go short, whoever is extending the margin will want something in return to make sure that if something goes awry, they're not going to be left holding the bag. And this is where collateral comes in. So if a hedge fund, for example, wanted to go short and then go more short and then keep on going short on GME, their primary dealer or whatever, right? They would say yes, but in order to do this, we need you guys to put more and more skin in the game to cover a loss just in case you fail. And I think one of the things that's going on here, or there's two things that come to mind. One is value at risk. And I don't know enough to go into the weeds here, but this is the concept with VAR. VAR would be someone saying, okay, well, listen, market maker, let's say I'm a hedge fund. It's like saying, well, listen, I might be uber short, but don't worry, I'm actually not uber short, a million shares, a billion shares or whatever, because while I might be short over here, I've got a contract where I have to take, however many shares of GME or whatever, right? So while I'm short here, I'm long here, and these two things balance each other out. When I talk about exotic ways to warehouse a short position, this is, kind of the entry point to that. I don't know nearly enough to go into the details on this regard, but if I had to guess, I guess it's something like that.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. Do you think you can dig deeper on what you think they're using as this collateral? Because I know that I think you have some thoughts on this, and I would like to get your opinion.
So they're probably using everything under the sun, would be my guess. Or what they have to post for collateral, it's not so much what they want to use for collateral, or backup. It's not so much what a short position in GME would want to use for collateral. It's what would be accepted by their primary dealer or by their boss, or I said boss, wrong to say, but like by their primary dealer as acceptable collateral. This is where I think you see some interesting things in the crypto market. This is where I think you see some interesting things in COMEX. Again, not related to silver here, but you see these swaps that are entered into. And again, I need to basically take a weekend and just, sequester myself away and just force myself to understand, because I do not understand them beyond just the most surface of surface levels. But the key is, whatever they can post as collateral is going to be whatever they will post, whatever their primary dealer will accept as collateral. And we did a prior video, maybe yesterday or 2 days ago, talking about how long will this go on for. And this is a very interesting thing, because I suspect the system knows that if there's a GME margin call, or if GME blows up, there's going to be a lot of hell to pay. Here's what I don't know the answer to. In a normal market, a primary dealer might tell the hedge fund, no, we're not going to accept this collateral. This is just, the garbage that you took out of the office in the kitchen. That this isn't collateral at all. But if times are rough and they know that they're just about to go over, then a primary dealer might say, okay, well, listen, we know that this is a big steaming bag of human excrement that you've given us, but at the same time, you have nothing else to give. And if you don't give us something for collateral, we are going to be in the position of having to force a margin call on you, and ain't nobody want that. So that's what I don't know in terms of the specifics here, but that's what I
Yeah.
think's going on.
Let's take this to the repo market and why this makes sense. Because what happens in a repo agreement? Let's say me and Justin are both big entities and we are going to enter a repurchase agreement. Let's say, if this will be in this, just think of this in the same essence as you would posting collateral for GME. Let's say I'm the entity that needs the cash, and Justin's the entity that he's going to lend me cash, but I am not trustworthy. So what are you going to do? You're going to say, okay, you're going to post collateral and I will lend you my cash. So we'll do a transaction. I am going to get $1 million worth of cash. Justin is going to give me an agreed upon amount of collateral and then we will exchange in say 2 weeks or whenever we really want to. We'll do a defined agreement and then shake hands. But what happens if that collateral starts to go down in value? If that collateral was say worth $1 million, but you're using mortgage-backed securities or treasuries, and then that collateral it starts to tank, and now your $1 million worth of collateral is now worth $800,000 or $500,000. The person who have the cash can say, Justin is going to say, hey, buddy, you need to bump up your collateral. You need to send me more because it's losing value. So now I have to make up for that difference and continuing have to do this as the collateral that I sent in goes down. The point of this is if the collateral that they are supplying to these entities that are allowing them to go short and maintain their short position, they need to do everything in their power to make sure that collateral does not lose value, or they're going to be sitting on a loss, and then therefore they're going to have to bump up and give them more collateral. What they could be doing is going down the food chain and giving them worse and worse collateral, because that happens in these repo agreements that's worth less money. But let's say they're using Bitcoin or high tech stocks or anything. They could be quite literally using anything as collateral. But if that starts to lose value, they need to give more and more.
And it's not so much that you give more and more, it's also the fact that the person who's giving them the margin, in other words, going back to this, if a hedge fund or whatever, right, gets more and more short on a position, let's say GME, then that means that the cost to close theoretically goes up and up and up, particularly if the price of GME starts to run. And so if the hedge fund fails, the primary deal or the hedge fund's primary dealer is the one that has to close it out. This is again, the concept of collateral, and it's an old story. Go back, to '98 with LTCM, exhibit number 1. Go back to Lehman and Bear Stearns with MBSs for exhibit number 2 in 2008. It's whatever. This is not a history lesson, but we've been here before. Anyways, the thing I found interesting, this was kind of the thought that I had today, was I suspect the underwriting standard. I can't prove this. I have no insight. I don't have any hidden knowledge or whatever. Right? I just simply think through it. Like, what would I do if I was in a similar position? And what I would do is say, listen, we have to, at least for the time being, maintain the illusion that everything's okay. Part of maintaining the illusion, so in other words, you have the two sides of the transaction conspiring with each other. That is, the short hedge funds are conspiring to supply garbage collateral because that's all they've got, and to the primary dealer. And the primary dealers are conspiring to accept the garbage collateral at face value because they know if they don't, there's going to be other issues down the line. So going back to the real question, which is probably what people are going to ask, is, when moon or whatever. That, again, I do not know, but I will reiterate something that I've said before, and the more I think about it, the more probable I think it becomes. What's going to kick this off? It's going to be a civil war within the financial system. Someone somewhere is going to say, at some point in time, is going to say, wait a minute, we just can't keep up the charade any longer. We no more. We're calling it in. And as soon as that happens, this is where you get the concept of contagion that spreads in. Because if one person's doing it and fleeing to the exit, it's like, imagine someone yells fire in a crowded theater and starts running to the exit. Well, that one person might be able to make it out the door. Maybe the second or the third person might, but beyond that, there's going to be a massive, pile up, and it's going to be a bad situation. So anyways, the takeaway is that I think when it comes to the GME case of collateral, One of the things that allows the bad actors in this to keep being bad actors is the fact that they can post collateral. Posting collateral, I think, allows expansion of the balance sheet. And if they can post garbage collateral, and if the people they need to post collateral to, for example, a primary dealer, is willing to accept the garbage collateral, even though they know it's garbage, just to allow the game to continue, and not so much because they want the game to continue, just because they know if they blow the whistle, they're all going to be. I am very curious to see how that plays out, but that's what I think's going on, because I think the more and more they internalize, the more and more they go with these exotic transactions, the larger their balance sheet gets, and that means that it has to leverage up. And if it's leveraging up on shitty collateral that everyone knows is shitty, that is a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, and the most pristine collateral is short-term T-bills. So here's something that they could be doing: is we see reverse repo spiking right around the time when they had to stop using the crypto market. So what happens? They potentially, I mean, there's many theses on why reverse repos could be going up. This is just one of them. I'm not sure if it's correct, but I will lay the case down. So reverse repos are going up. They need a yield because they have too much cash. So they're going to these, they go to the money market funds, throw them onto the Fed's balance sheet, and then they're getting these T-bills. But then what happens? I know Jeff Snyder has said that you cannot rehypothecate these T-bills. But what if you are just propping up your balance sheet? So yeah. let's say you are posting these T-bills that you have you're doing a reverse repo every single day, getting these T-bills on your balance sheet, but they're technically not on your balance sheet because you don't hold those T-bills. You just technically have them on your balance sheet for that day.
No. Just a point of order, Josh. What will happen is that if even if it's an overnight repo, if you put them onto your balance sheet at the right before the close of business, you're like 5:59 p.m. 59 seconds, and then you take them off your balance sheet 1 second after it opens, when you close your books for that day, they will be on your balance sheet. Yeah. And the second thing is that even if it's an IOU T-bill from the Fed, that will be considered the same.
It's going to be considered the collateral. So then these say, okay, great, you gave me the collateral for the day, you're okay. But what's wrong with that situation? First off, they don't have the collateral. They don't actually hold those T-bills because it's just a short-term loan from the Fed. And that is just propping up more and more. I'm not sure if this is accurate, pure speculation. I could give you 3 other reasons why reverse repo spiked, and all of them I could probably convince you on. This is just one of them. Another thing that I think is really interesting that happened today is Credit Suisse. And this chart that you're about to see is really fascinating.
It's a Credit Suisse credit default swap. Yeah, I know. It's a mouthful.
Yeah. So what you're about to see on the screen now is a Credit Suisse credit default swap increasing. And why is this increasing? That people are betting that if Credit Suisse goes down, then they're going to make money. Why is somebody doing that? Because they think that there's a risk that Credit Suisse defaults. And when was the last time that we really started these? 2008, when we all know what happened, where all these defaults happened. Is this a coincidence? Is it? Justin, do you think this is a coincidence? Absolutely, it could be, but there seems to be a massive amount of coincidences happening recently. And then there's one other thing. The volume that we've seen is minuscule to just nothing. We see the stock tanking, but on no volume. So what does that mean? I saw someone say, oh, that means no one's buying. Yeah, no one's buying, but no one's selling. So why is the stock going down when this volume is virtually nothing? People are going into offshore, like lit or dark pools, and they're shorting the price down, buying in the money puts, driving it down. But these aren't people paper handing out. This is, I would say, one last push, which is just this minuscule volume, which to me looks like when you suppress volume for this long, it just seems like it's going to explode back up. It's like a rubber band where you can stretch it out to its max potential, and it seems like that's what we're doing right now. But you have to fling it right back. It just
let me put some more context on that for you too. So like when it comes to volume, so basically the thing with volume is that you kind of look around and say, okay, well listen, if GameStop is really not being traded, which is what low volume suggests, why is it that if you, let's say, look at the Fidelity, most bought and sold equities, whatever, it shows up there. So something's not adding up. This is why I continue to say, and will continue to say, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, which also leads me to suspect, again, this is me shooting from the hip here, if retail or people are buying GME And it's not showing up on public volume, Josh, that you and I can see. That it's showing up somewhere else, somewhere that you and I can't see. This is where it gets back into the idea of managing margin and short positions with, financial engineering and balance sheets. Because if this volume is being internalized, I think that's the verb. But if it's being internalized by a market maker or market makers or whatever, that theoretically means that their balance sheet is growing. So in other words, cash is accumulating to the market maker, and likewise on the other side, to offset the cash is the liability of securities sold but not yet bought. Those two things keep getting larger and larger and larger. This is the balance sheet expanding and expanding and expanding. This is why it goes back to the collateral issue, because the only way they can do this, that is the only way the person who's selling it short can sell short and have that transaction be guaranteed by their primary dealer, is because they've posted collateral, or the collateral is being managed in a way that is acceptable to the primary dealer, assuming the primary dealer is not in cahoots. And even then they might be, or not say cahoots, that's the bad way of saying it. And even if the collateral is not acceptable in a standard market, the primary dealer might know, like, shit, we don't have any choice. We just have to accept, this garbage, because if we don't, all hell's going to break loose. So anyways, Wall Street is a bunch of sharks, but that's kind of the way I think about it.
Yeah, just for some closing thoughts right now. I mean, I'm seeing massive FUD. This is an insane amount of people that are terrified. Yeah. Oh my God, that everything was supposed to happen. I'm losing so much money. Trust me, we are too. But this is probably the most bullish I've been.
Does it? I felt like he gets punched in the face. I'm like, give me another.
Yeah. So
you spit out a tooth, another.
I would say this is the most bullish I've been, because I love when it seems like we are at the very end of the 9th inning of the game, and I'm not sure if we are, but I do think with over the next 2 to 3 weeks we will find out, because this is just a gut feeling of mine. I get paid the big bucks because because I'm supposed to tell when the music stops. And you know what, Justin? I hear no music.
Josh, you are many things, and I think you're a smart fellow there, but you are not a Jeremy Irons, or at least not yet. So you need the gravitas. You need like, so if you don't know, Jeremy Irons just also did the voice of Scar from The Lion King, and he has like this voice and like this demeanor that it oozes it. Excellent.
And that's from the movie Margin Call. I didn't hit it too well.
I couldn't either. Don't feel bad.
We will end it there, guys. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the next one.